Hello, hello, welcome. Hi, everyone. I think everybody's connected to audio now. Maybe a couple are still connecting. Looks like we're good. Sorry about those technical difficulties. We almost made it through 3 days without any big snafus, but nonetheless, I'm really, really glad you're all here. I'm so stoked about this session. There's not a better person in the whole entire world I can imagine leading us through this topic. Dilo is a queer transgender Tamil Sri Lankan American actor, writer, and comic, and has toured his solo shows internationally, with his last show, To Tea or Not to Tea, having a run last summer at the Kirk Douglas Theater. Some of his acting credits include Looking, loved that show, Transparent, amazing, Sense8, one of my faves, Mr. Robot, Connecting, and Billy Eichner's movie Bros. He's a senior civic media fellow through USC's Annenberg Innovation Lab, funded by the MacArthur Foundation. His work has been published and are written about in academic journals, literary anthologies, and print online journalism sources such as The Guardian, NBC, CNN, and The Advocate. If you aren't already following Dilo's work, please check it out at dilocokid.com, and also follow along on Instagram. I just did, and it's amazing. Without further ado, kick it over to you, Dilo. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jordan. I'm so happy to be with y'all today. I see that we have, I think I think that there's like 11 people in the room right now. So I wanted to just start off by reading some things, sharing a little bit about me, and then if we have time towards the end, because I know that we do need to have a break and we started a little bit late, but I'm going to try and smush a lot of things into a small amount of time, but in general. Um, but I hope that y'all will stay with me and I'll try and be as entertaining as possible while I talk to you. Okay, so also, I think that the chat might be enabled, so please like chat and react and do all of that stuff. I'm not the best at multitasking, but like I will try. I know we've already done a land acknowledgement, but I wanted to start off by offering up a prayer and of my love to everyone here. You could be anywhere and you chose to be here. I do not take that lightly. I want us to remember that we are on sacred land, stripped from and stolen land, land that holds all the stories of violence and slavery, land that holds past and present undocumented and immigrant stories, land that knows the truth of the injustices no matter how many times history gets rewritten. Where I am, this land is the unceded land historically and presently tended to and protected by the Tongva, Kizh, and Chumash people. In my life and arts practice and on this land, I strive to behave and act in alignment and accordance with what Indigenous people, the original stewards of this land, are asking of me. And I also acknowledge the sadness that Native peoples have over the loss and destruction of their land. And I want to remind you that my time with you is sacred. I really don't take this lightly at all. And that whatever freedoms I have been fought for, and that like maybe 60 years ago, I might not have had the chance to be me with you, even in this Zoom. And so, with that being said, our bodies, like land and water, remember, and I want to honor your bodies as the places where kisses and bruises have been planted. I want to honor all the ways you've changed for your own freedom and all the ways you fought for others' freedom. And today, I share the ongoing story of finding my own truth and freedom, the sacred aspects of comedy and art working from the inside out. I hope that in hearing some of my story and about my workshops and other thoughts, and perhaps even laughing with me or at me, that you will recognize your own stories, victories, strengths, joys, your own journey, and you will remember what you have survived to bring you into this moment and all the precious lessons you carry as a result, which help move you forward into the next chapters of life. Um, Carol Burnett, y'all, Carol Burnett said that comedy is tragedy plus time. but it's not the passing of time necessarily or only. It is the community involved who helps you pass the time. It's the conversations with people. It might be a loved one, like with chosen family, when stuff is so painful that you get to laugh at the absurdities of ignorant folks. It might be a stranger. It might be audience folks. Like I've heard so many times that um, coming off a stage, not necessarily doing the club work, but like, when I present at universities or festivals or whatever, that people are responding to my work because there's an opening because of the comedy and because of the vulnerability. Um, and I want to say that well, all of this is power, and this is why I keep doing it, because I want to stay connected to the world. And we keep hearing this thing that humans are trash, but we only are because we're disconnected from each other and the land and nature. People are good, not all of us, but most of us. So, with that, I want to talk to you about a little bit about how I came into comedy as a healing tool, and it started like I grew up in Lancaster, California. It is a very, or it was rather, a very hick town. I don't know if anybody here is from the Antelope Valley, but I sorry, let me just move this chat over here, um, and a little bit of history about Lancaster is that it is where the KKK established its first West Coast church. Now, my parents are immigrants from Sri Lanka pre-war, and I was born in Queens. We moved to Lancaster, and my father is a doctor. He was called over by another Tamil Sri Lankan doctor in Lancaster. So I grew up with a very thick Tamil Sri Lankan community in Lancaster. Very odd for us to all be there, but we were, and I felt all of the racism. I mean, it's not like we saw clan members, but we felt the racism. We felt the and I knew from when I was a little kid that I was like super queer, right? So super queer. So because of that, I kind of just was observing with through my queer lens, through being an outsider to this mainstream society. I kind of like was observing things as a young person, and my father is like, he's the typical uncle in our community. Like he's got the jokes, he's got the timing on the joke. So at a very young age, I knew how to tell a really good joke. Um, and sometimes a dirty joke, and dirty jokes out the kids out of kids mouths are like tend to be funnier for some reason. So I kind of like understood the power of comedy at such a very young age. And what ended up well, so I'm growing up, and everything as you grow up, puberty, all of that, uh, you kind of, well, I think for me as a trans person, as a queer kid, I was just kind of trying to fly under the radar and not be noticed. And so the way that I did that was by becoming funny. Like I looked like a dude. Like I came into this world assigned female at birth, but I presented very masculine. People used to come up to my parents and say, "Oh, what a cute son you have," and they wouldn't even, really correct them or anything like that. They just kind of kept it moving, and so even though I knew that as I was growing up that it wasn't cool to like look like a dude as you were, getting closer in the age where it mattered, because when you're little, it doesn't matter when you're little. Um, I, uh, I knew that it wasn't cool. So then I was like, well, what do I do? And so I used comedy. I used comedy to kind of like deflect the questions around my queerness and whether or not I was queer. Um, and that that even became even like a bigger place of empowerment for me, is to Like I understand on a deep level, like on a very personal level, how comedy was actually saving me. And um, because because the other thing too is that like when you're comedic, then people kind of are like, oh yeah, like they're an artist, like that's why they dress like that, that's why they're like this, they're just weird. So I would rather be considered weird than to be found out, right? So um I came out to my parents 2 months before I graduated from college, and it did not go over well. And I left LA and I moved to New York. And even though I was creatively being raised over there by really incredible elders and queer people of color, I, it was the beginning of like a very dark moment because I didn't have the like everything that I knew about family was being tested, and I was I just felt really alone on a lot of different levels. So I I remember during this time I would end up going back home to try and talk to my parents, to try and talk to my community. And sometimes it was okay, but like generally there were always fights and things that were being said that would really like heartbreaking things, right? And and I'm grateful that I didn't get kicked out, but it kind of felt like that, kind of that you were a pariah, right? So so I remember every time I would come back to New York and I would just be feeling low, the only salve that I got, and I mentioned this earlier, was being able to be with other queer people of color and talk, and just queer people in general, really, but being able to talk about what was happening to me. And, like you come, I'm sure this has happened to so many of us, if not all of us, but you come in to your friend circles and you're like, you're sad and you're crying, and the next thing you know, your friends, these fools, are like making you laugh because they're basically taking your story and saying like, you're not the issue here, it's them. And then they crack jokes about the other people and what they're doing. And it's this kind of punching up that we talk about in comedy. um a punching up meaning that like, sometimes comics can be really 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 offensive and really phobic on all levels: queer phobic, fat phobic, sexist, misogynist, whatever. And I'm not saying that my comedy is like so like clean and vanilla. Like it's definitely like, I think it's good, but it's like, I choose not to punch down on people. I choose to punch up at the powers that make it harder for everybody else. And that's where I feel like my power in comedy is, or where the foundation is. So that was definitely taught to a great degree to me, like just kind of like energetically by being in chosen family community, that we could come and lay our souls out, like, and really be got by other people reflecting back to us that we weren't wrong, that our friends could tell us that it was them, it was not us, we were just trying to exist, trying to live, a callback to our workshop on yesterday, that we were just trying to exist. And so, and even though I'm talking about all of my stories from a queer, trans, brown perspective, like that's just the details. Like this is pretty universal around friendships, around good people, around comedy. And so I started writing. Uh, I had started off as a poet, and poetry was like really like me being able to share from my heart. But then I kind of became mostly known as a comic because I didn't want to just live in the sadness that my poems were about. And it wasn't even sadness, it was also anger at the systems, but not like rageful anger. It's just like talking about bigger issues. And I wanted to talk about like, I felt like as a young artist, I wanted to talk about the stuff that was happening to me specifically, and I was ready for that. Also, I had great mentors again that were teaching me about vulnerability and what it means to walk with integrity as an artist and as a person, really. So so anyway, I started writing and the monologues specifically, not just stand up. And the monologues would be an amalgamation of different people that I knew, probably similar mentalities, couple of quirks, throw them all together, and I would write these character monologues that were comedic, but also speaking to a lot of the either present day issues, uh, stuff that was going on in my life, or stuff that I had heard, like kind of milling about in my communities, and people responded with great appreciation, and I with everything that I have just told, these were all lessons in me forming workshops to that would both be a practice in decolonization and also a practice in empowerment. Such a tricky word, but I guess it is empowerment, and I'll get into that now. So also, I think I did say this at the top that y'all can blow up the chat if you want, because I love that shit. You don't need to. You can just kind of chill out and relax, and nobody's gonna say nothing. But anyway, so where do I go here? Okay, so um, in 2008, well, actually a little bit before that, because I had been touring. I I had been touring the festival and university college circuit, and um, I would be asked to do workshops. And initially, they were more writing for performance workshops, but I'm a comedic person and they'd be fun and things like that. But then I started switching it to really use comedy in the way that I see it as sacred. A lot of I don't know which indigenous communities use this, but there is this notion of the sacred clown and what medicine, meaning what good energy medicine this is for communities. And so, but before that, let me just go in order here. In 2008, there was a needs assessment survey done here in Southern California, kind of like not a census, but like kind of like a census on people's like well-being, I guess, needs assessment. And and what they found out was that there were 300,000 South Asians in Southern California, and that's just of who like based off of the demographic, like the statistics. And we knew that there were probably more, maybe undocumented, but we were running with that number. And if the 10% rule stuck, which is 10%, it used to be that they said that 10% of our global population are queer. I think it's a little bit more, but a lot more, especially these days. Everybody's a queer. But anyway, I I if there were 30,000 South Asians that were queer or questioning in Southern California, there were no there was only one queer South Asian organization, and their list at that time was not that big. So we were like, well, what is it that we can provide for our community through this organization? And I started the Coming Out, Coming Home workshop. Initially, people were like, we don't want to do this. Like, we don't know how it's going to be. How can we get people to come? Because at that time, they were mostly just trying to make party spaces. And I was like, we can't just do this. Like, people are coming into these parties, and they were like immigrant South Asian people coming in to just want to feel a sense of home at these parties and dance and have a good time. But because it was the only place that they could be completely free, these people were going off, like some of them were going off the wall, like they were just, getting too drunk or um, yeah, mostly that. So I was like, look, there's clearly not a space for people to just even talk about their feelings. We really do need to talk about mental health. And it's so odd that even as 2008 sounds like it was a long time ago, but people weren't talking about mental health in general. Anytime the word mental health was brought up, people were like, "Oh yeah, we don't do that because like that's not me. I don't have mental health problems." And it's like, why? Because you're worried that people are gonna think that something wrong with you. And I'm like, we live in this world. If we all, I mean, these days I joke that if people aren't feeling some sort of depression, I don't know if I could trust you. But anyway, um, so I created this workshop called the Coming Out, Coming Home workshop, and it was meant to be a writing from personal experience around your queerness, a moment in time where you could just be. It was a 6 week long workshop. We could just come together, write. I would go through a series of exercises. There was like a lot of like it felt like a group therapy spot, but I just say that it is art therapy. But I'm not a mental health, I'm not a therapist, psychologist, anything like that. But I do know how to hold space for people in a sacred way. And I do know how to create ritual around our artistic process. And I also know how to teach comedy and writing. So these were folks who, you know, felt like they trusted me, and we went through a process together. And at the end of the workshop, they were asked to bring people that they normally wouldn't invite, and uh, to a public reading of their work. And these workshops were just so incredible that that instead of me having to coax people that we needed to have something like this, we got funding for it for the following years. So then after that, I also started doing these comedy workshops on the university college circuit. And college students, I have the privilege, I feel so blessed to be able to speak to people of that generation, of that age demographic, because I feel like they're kind of overlooked. They're in college. I know that the on campus people, you know, can find the resources that they need, but it's almost like we think of the college students as just kind of going away, and like nobody hears from them, and they're having their own experiences, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like content, like, there's a lot of things that come up for people, especially if you're queer, if you're a young person who hasn't been in a big populated place, somebody who's struggling as to be social, just all the things. And so I created this workshop to have a place that was kind of like a mix of what we had in the Coming Out, Coming Home workshops, but it was more comedically focused. And while I don't feel like it's appropriate to share stories of what has happened in those workshops, I can tell you lightly that that just being in a process of shifting the narrative from being okay, in the larger scheme of things, we're saying like from moving from the oppressed or the victim. I'm going to scratch that word, not victim, but just to say oppressed, um, to one who is an observer, who's watching the absurdities happen around them, is such a powerful process. And so I was hoping that within this time with you, I can do some exercises and perhaps we could even get there, or maybe we can I mean, okay, this is, to be honest, I don't know who wants to be in a breakout room or not. So if you want to put in the chat, yeah, I'll be in a breakout room, then we'll do something like that. But if you're not interested, totally okay. I can just keep talking and sharing, and you can even ask me questions in the chat and we can back and forth. But I wanted to also tell you a little bit. Maya said, sure, definitely. Get it, Maya. Trish, okay. Get it, Trish. Oh, Mario, good, cool. Okay, keep it coming, keep it coming. And while y'all are doing that, I'm going to read the workshop description. It's not really a workshop description, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit, share a little bit about this so that you kind of have context to it. So I say I'm an actor and I write, but I'm also a comic and a cultural worker. Cultural worker, I kind of use as a way to, like a looser way of saying that I am definitely social justice driven, but I'm stepping, even though the work that I do is activism work, I want to say cultural worker because I feel like social justice shouldn't be outside of culture, shouldn't be seen outside of culture. It should be seen as being embedded in our culture, that we need to fight for people who our communities. We need to fight for our liberation and our decolonization processes. So I also do a lot of things, but I'm trying to say that I love laughing and hanging out with dope folks. I think art grounds us and comedy is medicine. And unfortunately, the present climate has little room to share ourselves creatively with others, let alone to have fun with one another. So I always say, look at my workshops at being as a time for you to just be the best version of yourself in a space where you're allowed to just shine and be. With over 15 years of experience in facilitating arts processes and directing performance and teaching writing classes, I have created a workshop for folks to have an experience in the process of creating art using a tool almost everyone is good at, storytelling. I strongly believe in sharing creative art making with as many people as possible and catering to the various levels of participants' artistic exposure. And I also believe that the more laughter in the world, the better. So if someone wants to try something new, creatively express themselves, work on storytelling as a tool for social justice, try stand-up comedy, I create, or rather co-create with you, workshops that are tapered to the bodies and the beings in the room, in the Zoom room. My workshops are also geared towards community building through an artistic process and through collectively building a supportive and safe space for everyone to share and engage in conversation and art. And through my years of arts mentoring and being mentored, I have compiled an arsenal of exercises that encourage creativity using personal memories to make artistic discoveries. It's not boring, I promise. Okay, so we're gonna do a very quick, short, yeah, nobody needs to be on camera. It's totally fine. And I totally get that people are coming in and just checking things out on the fly. That's totally fine as well. So I think that this is Pauline. We're gonna do a quick thing where are people okay being off camera if they get put into a breakout room? Thumbs ups, reactions, or like,
Yeah, another option is that if people are put into a breakout room, if you don't want to be there, you can come right back
yes.
to the main room. I want you all to feel like you have complete choice. There is no requirement to participate, but the
Yeah.
easiest way for my tech is that I'll just send you automatically, and then you would click return to main room if you don't feel like being there. And
Yeah.
don't be offended if whoever you show up with leaves, because this is all just about choice.
Exactly. And also, if somebody is not on camera and you want them to be on camera, then, or sorry, if someone is not on camera and you are, we're just going to try this because sometimes, will the breakout rooms be recorded or live streamed? No,
No.
right? Yeah. No. We don't, we're not trying to do all of that. but thank you for asking, because I'm sure that that was probably on other people's minds as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put y'all in a breakout room, and then y'all are going to ask each other what's, the rosebud thorn thing. You're going to ask each other, what is one beautiful thing that happened in your week outside of this conference? And what's one shitty thing that happened in the conference? I'm not in the conference, in your week. So the rosebud thorn type of thing. And you're just going to share that with somebody. We're going to give you all 2 minutes. You know what? Let's make it 3 minutes so that y'all can introduce yourselves and like be happy and thing. And then, or talk shit about me. And then we're going to bring you back in. And that's it. That's all we're going to do. Really. That's all we're going to do. And then, when we come back into the room, I'm going to, talk about something else. Okay. We'll do that. Awesome. Okay, so now the second step of this is that, and what we're gonna do, because this is through Zoom and I can't, perhaps you loved your partner and perhaps you were like, "Meh." So this is for the people who really just kind of like enjoyed talking to their person and just kind of was like, had it be light and fun. But I wanted to hear back from folks. If you could put it in the chat that you might be open to, can the participants come on screen if they wanted to? And knowing that this is not going to be shown online anywhere.
This will be recorded, so if you choose to come on camera, then in the recording for people who purchase the upgrade package, they'll be able to see your beautiful faces, but you can always turn your camera off if you'd like and just speak.
Is there a way that we can not have them be on in the edit?
I will go ahead and spotlight you.
Okay, awesome.
Just a second here.
Thank you so much, Pauline. Pauline is the tech genius here.
You're ready to go.
Okay, awesome. So if anybody wants to be brave, we're going to do a very quick thing where I call you on and I'm going to ask you some questions.
Shoot, what's up?
Astara! I hope I said their name right. Can we get Astara on there?
So I see Astara's chatting in the chat, but voice works just as well. Astara, your choice.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So great to be here with all of you beauties.
Yes. Astara.
Oh, not me, like saying me, but like what this is. So this is fantastic. It feels.
Oh, okay.
So it's refreshing. I'm ready. Maybe.
Okay, you're ready. So Astara, can you tell me, would you want to share with me? Actually, let's do this in a very chill way. Do you want to share what your rosebud and your thorn were for this week?
Can you repeat? I didn't understand also earlier. What's the question? Can you repeat? It's not my first language.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so in the breakout room, you were asked to share with your partner what something good that happened in the week and something that was not so good.
Yeah, we didn't have time. So the other person shared the first part of the question. No, they shared what was not good, and I didn't have time to share anything. So what is your question now? I didn't get.
Oh, okay. Then don't worry about it, Astara. We can move on. It was actually gonna be that you were gonna get a couple of exercises thrown your way, but it's okay. We can move on. But thank you for talking with me. That was fun to just even know that you were here. I hope you're having a good time.
I'm really enjoying it and valuing it.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Astara.
But you're not gonna give me exercises now?
No, I not because you had to have done the exercises in the room, and I just saw that it said, "Babes, that was too short." So I'm so sorry that it was too short for y'all to talk.
All right.
Okay, y'all, you have a great day, and I'm so happy you're here. Um, okay, well, these are the things that happen in Zoomlandia. I you know, the other part too is that y'all probably are just enjoying talking to each other, and here I am messing it up for everybody. So I apologize, but okay, after this is how I would explain what it is that I do. So one of the joyous exercises is that, and I'm going to shut this down. Pauline and Jordan, please keep an eye on the chat for me if you could, because now I'm out of a window. Okay, so one of the joyous things that I get to do is create these exercises in which, oh, there we go, I found it. Okay, is to be able to I'm not going to even go into that. What would happen right now in the workshop would be that people would be offering to share their experience talking to their person and just connecting and listening and being like, yeah, you know, and this person said this and I resonated with that and I got to know them better. And now I actually realize, like, you know, sometimes it'll be like, oh my God, like within 3 minutes, I found out so much stuff that I actually connect with this person on. And I actually agree with some of their ideas or whatever. And then I asked the participants to then ask their partner if they have permission to share their story. And based off of that, the participants will then, so like, let's say me and Pauline are here, and I say, Pauline, is it okay if I share your story? And if they say no, then no. But if they say yes, then I then have to become Pauline. And this is an exercise in honoring bodies. Because even in comedy, what I feel, and this is just probably my mission statement around comedy, is that if comedy has the power to break people, to hurt and harm people, then I don't want that kind of comedy. I want the comedy that is about healing and it is about honoring people, right? And so then that person would do their best to embody that person, even though that they're a stranger, technically a stranger, someone they just met, but they would do their best to then recall. Sometimes in the exercises, a lot of people will be like, you know what, I don't know how to, I don't remember. Things were moving so fast, I don't remember. And then we talk about what listening is. I know that a lot of people call it active listening, and that's such a beautiful thing to actively participate in listening. But it is also about all the things that we take in about someone, about their mannerisms, about the things that they do, with their hands or with their body or with their eyes, their eyebrows, their facial expressions, anything, and using that to become someone else. And again, this is about honoring, because if we're walking on this planet and we can't metaphorically step into someone's shoes to understand them, then we're not doing the best work that we can be as humans, right? Like our empathy has to be so great that we can feel people, especially in arts, I think, to feel people in a way that that we are part of them. I know that that sounds crazy, but that's the high level of honoring that I expect in my workshops, right? And so through that exercise, and then, you know, like through time and doing these exercise things like this again, we find that people can do, you know, not offensive caricatures, but like caricatures that or characters that are based off of people that we know in order to tell a story. And then farther down the line, we do these exercises using character decorum. And character decorum is like where all of us would sit here. I know that just give me one more minute and then we can get out of here, or maybe a couple more minutes. But I just want to share this last bit of this exercise with you, is that we do these character decorums where I, like Jordan and Pauline and Astara and the other people here, Betsy and Trish and all of y'all would be in a circle, and then you would write down a number 1 through like 150, right? And then you would write down an occupation, any occupation, right? A gender, and what is it? Gender. It just depends on how well we know everybody, but I do sometimes write a race or ethnicity. I just try and steer away from things that feel like, unless it's like a homogenous group. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly, but anyway, never mind, I ramble. So I would take this piece of paper, or we would write it down on a piece of paper, and then we would pass it around to the different people. Like, so Jordan would give theirs to Pauline, Pauline would give me theirs, and then what we would do is write a story. And I think that to get to deep comedy when it's looking at our own selves, I use these exercises first because it's a little less pressure to then have to it's a little less pressure to create from imagination and to have fun with creativity before we start writing personal stories, right? And so these stories are supposed to be written in the first person, and you write down a character that is between whatever, like let's say Jordan gave me a number that was 5. I would write from the perspective of a 5-year-old, whatever gender, who has a job, because we wrote down occupation, and then and any other things that were part of the decorum, right? And I would write a piece from that, and then we would share about that. All of us would share. And through these kind of monologue-y kind of comedic writings, because, you know, sometimes the person's 150. Like, what are you going to think about a person being 150 years old? You know, sometimes, like, you know, are they alive? Where are they in this galaxy? You know what I'm saying? But it's a way to then go through a process with my participants around how do we honor even the characters that are not technically real, and moving to a greater understanding of what it means to really honor the characters, no matter how bizarre, no matter what, because if we don't honor the things that are coming from our brains and our minds and our hearts, even if they're completely through our imagination, then how can we then expect to use that same level of honoring in the way that we write comedic stories? Okay, I know we're at 10:48, y'all. I would love if y'all had any questions, please drop them in here if you want to ask any questions. But also just know that you can also reach out to me and we can talk about this. If you have questions around, like if you're at jobs where you're like, I want to use this with my colleagues, if you're in the schools, if you teach at schools, like I want to work with something like this with my students, anything like that, please reach out to me. Or if it's like that you personally want to do, like if you feel like, you know what, I have a lot of like hard stuff that I've been trying to work through, I want to go through a therapeutic process around this, reach out to me. We'll brainstorm some ideas, and I can get you started on your comedic journey. But I just wanted to say one last thing, is that it all starts with honoring all of that we have to ritualize both the artistic process, but also ritualizing the honoring. Okay, that's it. Whew, thanks for staying for the four extra minutes.